What's going on, everybody? It's Sports Talk with Lane here, and today we are going to be talking about the top 20 NFL quarterbacks of all time. Let's go. Before we get started, I want to give a shout out to a few honorable mentions, those being Len Dawson, Terry Bradshaw, and Dan Fouts. At 20, I got Sammy Baugh. Baugh is considered as the first superstar quarterback. In an era where star players never left the field, he was also a world-class punter and an elite safety. As a passer, he led the league in passing yards 4 times, including an unheard-of 2,900 yards in 1947, passing touchdowns twice, and completion percentage a record-holding 8 times. Back in the 40s, a forward pass was only used in desperate situations, but thanks to Sammy, it's now a normal part of the game. At 19, I got Warren Moon. Moon didn't play a snap in the NFL until he was 28 because of the narrative that African-American quarterbacks weren't smart enough to play in the NFL. Before he played in the NFL, he was an all-time great in the CFL, and once he signed with the Oilers in 1984, he led the league in passing yards twice, won Offensive Player of the Year in 1990, and continued to play 17 seasons until the age of 44. Moon is credited with throwing the most perfect spiral in NFL history. At 18, I got Jim Kelly. While Kelly never won the big game, he is the only quarterback to make the Super Bowl 4 consecutive times. His only real chance to win came against the Giants, but Scott Norwood's missed field goal caused the Bills to lose. Kelly doesn't have the eye-popping stats that other all-time great quarterbacks have, but he was a great leader with great arm talent that was able to withstand freezing Buffalo weather in the second half of the season. At 17, I got Lamar Jackson. A lot of you might be thinking it's too early for Lamar to be up here, but it's really not. In Lamar's 6 seasons, he won 2 MVPs in 2019 and 2023, and solidified himself as the best rushing quarterback of all time, after breaking the single-season rushing yards record in 2019. Unfortunately, this has not translated to playoff success so far, but Lamar is in his prime, and his career is far from over. He should be able to rise up a few spots before he retires. At 16, I got Fran Tarkenton. Tarkenton revolutionized the quarterback position. As great of a passer he is widely considered as the first dual threat, playing half a decade before that aspect was appreciated. Tarkenton won MVP and Offensive Player of the Year in 1975, made 2 All-Pros, 9 Pro Bowls, and brought the Vikings to 3 Super Bowl appearances. At the time he retired, Tarkenton was the all-time leader in passing yards, touchdowns, completions, and QB rushing yards. At 15, I got Kurt Warner. Like Moon, Kurt didn't play a snap in the NFL until he was 28. He spent 3 seasons playing arena football before getting signed to the Rams. Kurt won MVP in his first season as a starter and led the Rams to a Super Bowl and won Super Bowl MVP in that game. He won another league MVP in 2001 and made the Super Bowl, but lost. He made another Super Bowl with the Cardinals in 2008, but lost after Santonio Holmes' game-winning touchdown. At 14, I got Bart Starr. Starr will always be known for winning the first 2 Super Bowls and Super Bowl MVP in both games. However, Starr's dominance started before the Super Bowl era, as he won a total of 5 championships between 1961 and 67, and only has 1 playoff loss to his name. He did have a great backfield to lean on, but you have to remember, back in the 60s, quarterbacks called their own plays. Starr led the league in completion percentage 4 times and won MVP in 1966. At 13, I got Steve Young. Steve is the definition of a late bloomer. He spent 2 seasons on a poverty Buccaneers team before spending 4 years as Montana's backup in San Francisco. Young won MVP in his first season as a starter in 1992 and another in 94, and led the Niners to the Super Bowl, winning Super Bowl MVP after throwing 6 touchdown passes against the Chargers. Young was also the first great rushing quarterback. At 12, I got Roger Staubach. Staubach spent 4 years in the Navy before joining the Cowboys in 1969, and once he got there, he shared the starting QB role with Craig Morton for 2 seasons. Once that was over, Staubach led the Cowboys to win Super Bowl 6 and 12, winning Super Bowl MVP in Super Bowl 6. Staubach was a great scrambler, had a great arm, and was clutch. inadvertently creating the term Hail Mary. At 11, I got Otto Graham. Otto Graham made the championship in all 10 seasons he played professional football, and won 7 of them, including all 4 AAFC championships and 3 NFL championships. Graham routinely led the league in every major passing stat and created the modern-day T formation that showed the QB can be the focal point of an offense, which is even more impressive when you consider that Graham never played quarterback until the professional level. His background as a running back helped him rush for 44 touchdowns, a record that would last for decades. At 10, I got Drew Brees. Brees' accomplishments often get swept under the rug because he played at the same time as other all-time great quarterbacks, such as Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers, and Patrick Mahomes, which explains why he never won an MVP. Brees might be the most accurate passer of all time, leading the league in passing yards 7 times and completion percentage 6 times, and has 5 seasons with over 5,000 yards. Brees also led the Saints to win Super Bowl 44 and earned Super Bowl MVP in that game. At 9, I got Brett Favre. Favre was the textbook definition of a gunslinger and was all or nothing on every play, which worked out more often than not, throwing the ball where most quarterbacks wouldn't even think about throwing it. Favre went on to win 3 consecutive MVPs from 1995 to 97, and led the league in passing yards in all 3 of those seasons, and did it again in 2003. Favre led the Packers to win Super Bowl 31. At 8, I got John Elway. Like Favre, Elway was an elite gunslinger, but he could also make plays with his legs, and was incredibly clutch, repeatedly leading game-winning drives, most notably in the 1986 AFC Championship game, where Elway led the Broncos 98 yards to tie the game with 37 seconds left, and ended up winning in overtime. But he didn't win a Super Bowl until his last 2 seasons, where he won back-to-back, winning Super Bowl MVP in Super Bowl 33, the last game of his career. At 7, I got Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers spent the first 3 years of his career as Favre's backup, but it didn't take long for him to become a superstar. Like Brees, Rodgers played in an era where quarterback play was at an all-time high, but that didn't stop him from winning 4 regular season MVPs, leading the Packers to win Super Bowl 45 and winning Super Bowl MVP. Rodgers is one of the most talented QBs of all time, and even after the Achilles injury, he still has a lot more football left in him. At 6, I got Johnny Unitas. Unitas is by far the best QB to play before the Super Bowl era, and changed the way the position is played, with his ability to read defenses, change calls at the line of scrimmage, and rise in clutch situations. Before Unitas, teams ran regular plays after the 2-minute warning instead of managing the clock, which meant fourth-quarter comebacks were non-existent. That style of play led Unitas to 3 NFL championships and a Super Bowl V victory, as well as 3 MVPs. Unitas was in a league of his own, and for many years was considered the GOAT. At 5, I got Dan Marino. In just his second season, Marino became the first QB to throw for 5,000 passing yards, and at the time, broke the record for passing touchdowns with 48, which would stand for 20 years. He won MVP that year and went to the Super Bowl, but the Dolphins were blown out by the 49ers. Marino never made it back to the Super Bowl, but it's not entirely his fault, since the Dolphins failed to put a proper team around him. That being said, Marino is still one of the best pure passers of all time, with a cannon of an arm and a lightning-quick release. At 4, I got Patrick Mahomes. The fact that Mahomes is this high up after only 5 seasons as a starter makes him an anomaly. In his first season as a starter, he won his first MVP, passing for over 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns, and earned his second MVP in 2022. In Mahomes' 5 seasons, he made the Super Bowl 4 times and won 3 times, earning Super Bowl MVP in all 3 games. Mahomes has everything you want in a quarterback: elite arm strength, elite improvising and scrambling ability, high football IQ, and is extremely clutch. Considering he's this high up early in his career, it's only a matter of time before Mahomes enters the GOAT conversation. At 3, I got Peyton Manning. Peyton might be the best of all time statistically. With the help of his exceptional accuracy from the pocket and understanding the defense's play call better than the defenders, Manning has 5 MVPs, the most out of anyone, and after injuries nearly derailed his last few seasons with the Colts, Peyton had arguably the best single season of a quarterback of all time in 2013, throwing for over 5,400 yards and 55 touchdowns, records that still stand today, and won Super Bowls 41 and 50, with Super Bowl 50 being the last game of his career. At 2, I got Joe Montana. Montana was the ultimate pocket passer, being able to hit any spot on the field, and solidified the quarterback archetype of clutchness, with his biggest moment being his game-winning drive in Super Bowl 22. Montana took the Niners 95 yards down the field with 3 minutes and 10 seconds on the clock. Montana's resume stacks up against anyone in the league, with 4 Super Bowls, 3 Super Bowl MVPs, and 2 league MVPs. Montana was the standard for QB success and the GOAT for decades, up until this next guy passed him. And at number 1, I got Tom Brady. This should not require any explanation, because there's no evidence that supports anyone being remotely close to Brady. He's got 7 Super Bowls, more than any franchise, a record holding 5 Super Bowl MVPs, as well as 3 regular season MVPs. And being as consistent as he was for 23 seasons, Brady not only has the best longevity in football, but in all of sports. That's all for today. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications.